Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle and I'll be your webinar moderator today. Our presenter today is James Baulderstone. James is the CEO of the National Intermodal Corporation, the federal government business enterprise responsible for delivering an integrated network of intermodal precincts along Australia's east coast in support of the government's Inland Rail project and further investment in the upgrade of Australia's critical supply chain. James has over 30 years of international experience in major infrastructure developments covering energy, utilities, resources, and transport industries. He has been responsible for managing major integrated interstate energy hubs and leading and developing large international joint venture energy terminals in Queensland and New South Wales. Like always, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have a question, please feel free to type your question in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll be answering the questions at the end of the session. So welcome everyone, and over to you, James.
Oh, thank you very much. I think I sound more impressive than I actually am. But look, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you guys today. It's a fascinating time to be in the transport, logistics, supply chain industry, and I think one of the few benefits that we've had from COVID, that it sort of focused the government's mind also on the importance of what you guys do for a living, and have done it well for a long time. So look, in a nutshell, we're really talking about these intermodal terminals. What are they? What do they mean? Why is the government becoming involved? And hopefully how it can benefit everyone that goes across the entire sort of supply chain. So 4 things that I really want to touch on today. Who are we? Then secondly, what role will the government play in supporting supply chains? A bit about how rail and road can work together, and then we'll take you through what Moorebank is at the moment, and then how future terminals may look in Melbourne and Brisbane as it ties back into inland rail. And then we have some questions. So as we've already touched on, we are what's called a government business enterprise. So we're like Snowy Hydro, Western Sydney Airport, Australia Post, NBN. So while we're 100% owned by the Commonwealth Government, we are set up as an independent statutory body with commercial requirements to deliver certain returns, and we have a separate board that sits outside of government, but we are still 100% owned. But like we said, we operate in a commercial context. Our remit is to work with private enterprise to develop and design and integrate these new intermodal terminals together with the Inland Rail project and development. So we're separate from Inland Rail, but we're there to support. And again, like I said, it's a really important driver for us to work with industry, both to make sure that what we're developing is what's required by industry, and also with various co-investment requirements or opportunities as well. In effect, we've spoken about, we really look at 3 particular zones or locations for these intermodal terminals. You see sort of A, B, C here on the page. A is Moorebank, B is the terminal discussions in Melbourne, and C obviously is the other end of Inland Rail as it goes through there. They're all at different phases of their development. Moorebank, if anyone's sort of driven past or seen it, that is well in construction. It's got a port shuttle terminal already working that connects it directly to Port Botany, and there's 850,000 square metres of warehouse precinct being developed now, with Woolworths being the anchor tenant for 2 large distribution centres, one interstate and one regional. Melbourne, lots of discussions going on with industry and also the Victorian government around potential terminals down there. There are 2 sites being considered, one in the north and one in the west, and hopefully we can get closure on how those terminals will be developed in the very near term. And then Brisbane as well, ongoing discussions around there about preferred locations, about how the Inland Rail project will connect into Melbourne with a new terminal through there. So that's basically the framework of what we're being involved in and how we go. Our objectives are basically a threefold. We're really looking at this concept of supply chain resilience, and in a nutshell, what that really is looking at now is, with the challenges that we've seen in the supply chain, both from COVID and also, various geopolitical upsets with Europe, Ukraine and the like, and it's really focused on the risk associated with overseas manufacturing and over-reliance on overseas supply chains. So really looking at what investment do we need to make as government and industry to make sure that our supply chain is as self-reliant and resilient as possible, to make sure that the security of movement of product around the country is really looked at in a fulsome way. Obviously, for the government, we very much focus on making sure consumers can get what they require in the most efficient and cost-effective manner as possible. Sort of brings us to our second objective, which is obviously to try and look at logistics efficiency, to drive costs out of that network as best as we can, to ensure that the prices that hopefully can be lowered by these new facilities can be passed through the chain and onto consumers. And obviously, cost of living is a situation for all of us, both business and industry and customers, but really looking at how we can make the systems more efficient to lower the prices right across that chain. And then sustainability. One thing that we want to do, both whether it's ships, trucks, or trains, to really look at how we can improve the sustainability, emissions, safety, congestion issues, all working together as we go forward with Australia's future supply chain. So that's the sort of three lenses that we look at as we go forward. So why does the government really look to get involved? So it's really, like I said, been really focused on three large drivers that have sort of been happening in the supply chain. We've all spoken about COVID. We've all seen that China is becoming more difficult than it has been in the past, and obviously geopolitics is challenging everyone. I'm sure I'm not speaking to anyone who doesn't know this, but the costs through the supply chain have increased dramatically over the last 12 months. It's just a stat on shipping costs, and there are many other stats that we can point to around what's happened through there. From the work that we do, we know nearly 50% of companies have had supply chain disruptions. Almost half of them are increasing their costs because of the supply chain issues in relation to that. And majority of businesses are now looking at how do they adjust how they operate within that context. And a lot of them are looking at investing in more industrial space themselves because they want to hold more inventory. I think the days of having a very lean supply chain based upon overseas companies, I think is coming to an end, and there will be as we call this flip back to just in case, where more inventory will be stored in Australia rather than from overseas. So again, while I'll talk a bit about rail here, I do want to make it very clear is that we're not a rail entity. While we're obviously helping support inland rail to try and alleviate some of the problems in that network, you'll see our designs and our views on what an intermodal terminal will look like in the future, and is very much aligned with ensuring that the right interfaces and that that last mile or how the trucks interface with rail is improved as well. What this slide here does show, though, from 1995 until now, you'll see the green line there is rail's share of the intermodal market on the East Coast. That's fallen from 30% down to a little less than 10%. As you can see there, the total amount of volume of freight that has been moved, though, in that period has doubled. and the role that rail plays has basically flatlined. So to make sure that the future rail challenge, which again is predicted to double again over the next 20 years, to make sure that the system can work, rail has to play a bigger role. The challenges around the road network, the ability of trucks to continue to haul as much as they now do will be very, very challenged if you have a doubling of volume that needs to move through the network. So this is a pretty important factor that we're all looking at about how to get the right balance of trucks and trains lifting together as it goes through. Again, what we hope to do, again, say working together, is the right share coming between the two modes. Like I said, I want to stress that we're not anti-truck by any stretch of the imagination. Trucks clearly have a vital role going forward. We want to make sure that we can work collaboratively together to make sure not just the last mile, but also the right freight moves by truck. Trucks have so many advantages over rail. They are faster. They can be more efficient in some circumstances, and they have the ability to be more flexible. They can go door to door, where a train always has that second lift. So there's always that ability and that advantage they have there. It's like I said, it's really about ensuring that we can cooperatively work together. And it's one of the reasons I was keen to have this discussion, was to make sure that anything we can hear from the trucking industry as we finalise our plans and can work together is factored in as we go forward. So there are benefits to rail. So while I've spoken about road, obviously have some benefits around flexibility, speed, and cost. Rail is an important mode. When you're hauling significant freight with fewer diesel engines, it does make it more efficient. Obviously taking trucks off the road will improve congestion and some emissions that are emitted by a large number of diesels on the road, fuel efficiency, and those type of things through there. We would like to continue to work together again on renewable fuels and different types through there. And again, I'll speak a bit about that when we come to the sort of intermodal sort of aspect as well. But like I said, this is all about making sure that cooperatively we can bring together the two modes to do the right lifting at the right time. So let's now look at Moorebank. So again, we've spoken a bit about the background now, and let's talk about how we're quite keen to make sure that we can really sort of integrate these two aspects as it goes forward. When we hear often people talk about intermodal terminals, I think most people's minds turn to, understandably, what is the traditional intercity exchange, which is, a bit of a picture here of this is Chullora in Sydney. It's been around a long time. It's about 20 hectares. You can see there it's a basic rail siding that transfers containers from rail to road. There's no real on-site processing or storage and things like that. And it's really that last mile that is really sort of hurting rail to some degree, where there is a significant cost of roughly 40% in the rail supply chain that is that last lift on and off. So that's one of the things we're really looking at. What we're looking at doing is something that's significantly different. So this is a picture here of what Moorebank will look like when it's completed. So again, you have a strategic location that attempts to pick the right location that meets the needs of connecting to the port, connecting to the road network, and then connecting to the rail network. No site's going to be perfect for everything, but what you're seeing here is a site that's 10 times larger than Chullora. It's 250 hectares. It has obviously significant co-location for customers. It has the ability to obviously centralise new technology, whether it's automation of moving boxes around from terminals to warehousing, but also how to to have renewable energy being brought into the system in that way. And We talk about the sort of that last mile savings as far as rail. There are significant savings that come off the co-location benefit of having customers and rail and trucks all working together in one sort of site. So an intermodal terminal, when we think about it, is much different than the historic way of thinking about it. Again, to try and bring that into what the future there may look like. So what we try to sort of design here is that, again, these intermodals are really looking at the three modes. So it's not just about rail, it's about how to connect efficiently to the ports and also how to connect efficiently to the road network. In the centre there is, what we hope to build and continue to enhance. Like I said, obviously the warehousing is very easy to focus on. With rail, there's a big issue about empty containers and how they're managed. So that'll be a role for the intermodal. Automation and how to efficiently move boxes around from rail to warehousing is something that can save time and effort. But having the right truck arrangements and the depots and exchanges, both for long haul and for that last mile, is something we really want to make sure is integrated. And then, like I've said, those co-located services for the next future round of energy. We all know that these will be around for a long time, but we'll be looking at how to actually co-locate electrification that can actually fast charge a fleet of modern trucks, and then also looking at innovation, things like hydrogen and those sort of things we can actually have in a sort of centralised location. So three real benefits. You get your efficiency of connection, you get this integrated hub concept where everything's co-located and then coming together. And then for us, we really like to make these terminals independent and open access. So they won't be controlled by any particular operator. They will be, non-vertically integrated, and anyone can use them with open access arrangements and pricing as it goes through there. So that's really the vision for taking Moorebank to the next stage as we look at developing Melbourne and Queensland. Obviously, then talking about how trucks can go in there, really looking at, again, it's one of the things we really want to get some more involvement with you guys in, how to make that efficiency, making sure the trucks can come in and come out as quickly as possible, looking how the automated straddles work. Obviously, if you go to Port Botany now, you see the Patrick terminal is becoming more and more automated, and how that can work, and making sure that it's efficient, it's faster, it's safer as far as those products can come in and off of your facilities as you're coming in and out as quickly as we can. One of the things we are also looking at is what's happening in Europe a lot more, is roll on, roll off, where the prime mover can come in, drop off at the terminal, pick up at the other end. Again, I know there's been a lot of past discussion around that in Australia, but there have been quite innovative works being done overseas on that. So that's one of the aspects we're also looking at into the future. Is that something that the industry supports? If so, how will we develop it, or even retrofit the terminal that could facilitate something along those sort of lines? So lots of things in the future to think about. Like I said, I think it's really encouraging that the government is looking at reinvesting in all aspects of the supply chain. I think it's well overdue, and it's a really good time to be involved in the industry and try and improve it, make it more efficient, help both small, medium and large players, but also those flow-on benefits to the consumer. So in a nutshell, it's, I think, touching on us, and happy to take any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you for your presentation, James. We'll start with some questions. The first one is, what metrics are you using to measure the increased connectivity promised as a result of the establishment of Moorebank, as members believe that its location is not ideal?
Yeah, so Moorebank's obviously been around in discussion for nearly 10 years now. So I think 2012 was when it was first earmarked. Like I sort of said, there is never going to be a perfect location. If you're talking to the port, they'll have a view. If you're talking to trains, obviously they have another view. If you're talking to the road guys, they have another view. And the fourth factor is making sure you can get access to developable land. One of the reasons that Moorebank was originally selected was because there was a 250 hectare old military land bank there from Old Holsworthy. So it was ability to connect in through there. It obviously worked well with the rail connection. We believe it works very well with the M5 and how that goes through there. So there's been a lot of work and a lot of studies obviously done over 10 years to do that, but we're obviously balancing all three of those modes to make sure that works as efficiently as possible. There are a number of other regional centres around. There's obviously Chullora, there's Enfield, St Mary's. So there's a number of other locations around Sydney that work with an expanded Moorebank. But we're pretty confident the work that we've done, also supported now by companies like Woolworths, who are investing over $1 billion on this site because they believe that it works with those modes well. Look, we're pretty comfortable that's the best in balancing all those items up.
Great. Given the proximity of Moorebank to the M5, are there any projects underway to reduce congestion in this area?
Yes, there are. So there are a number of roadworks that we're involved in. The most primary one for us, we're looking at expanding and realigning Moorebank Avenue itself that comes off the M5. So that'll be a 4-lane road that'll support the movement of vehicles in and out of the terminal. Anzac Avenue, that again is the next interface to the precinct, is also being expanded, and that's being built as we speak. And we're working with New South Wales State Government to expand the M5 off-ramps that lead into the precinct. So there will be a lot of roadworks that are associated with debottlenecking and making sure that the increased number of trucks that are needed can come in and out of the site more efficiently.
Thank you. Another one. The material about the Moorebank facility says, when completed, the Moorebank facility will move 1.5 million shipping containers annually by rail instead of road. How is this estimate derived, and what is the time frame? How will this be achieved when rail is often not suitable for targeted delivery?
Yeah, so like I said before, I think when people say rather than road, 1 million TUs of that is earmarked for the port shuttle. So really basically taking containers that will have to find a home at Port Botany and effectively shuttling them to the IMEX at Moorebank. Obviously those boxes, when they get there, need to be destuffed and then put onto trucks and moved elsewhere. So while that 1 million is moved out of Botany, obviously that last mile and how they are then configured is an important role then for the associated trucking fleet. Then you've got the other 500,000 TUs. That's the interstate terminal. So that is the larger interstate 1,800 metre trains that will be going between Sydney and Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, going through there. Again, that is part of trying to get rail effectively going back to its original 30% sort of market share. But like I tried to say, this, I hope everyone sees it. This is not a competition between trucks. There's more and more freight that's required. We know the trucking network will be stretched. This is how we make sure that the right freight's moved by the right mode, the right distance, and really working together through there. So that's where the 1.5 comes from. 1 million from the port, 500 from interstate trains, effectively taking the growth as that freight network continues to grow.
Great. And we have one more question. With 15-minute time slots, how are you going to encourage backloading?
Yeah, so again, this is where we really want to sort of really engage with your industry to sit down with us in a workshop. I say, okay, here's some indicative designs that we've got. You guys are the experts. You use terminals all the time. We obviously want to have efficient backloading and making sure that the customers and the logistics operators are working hand in glove. But that's sort of the next set of questions as to how we can get your feedback and working with our teams and the customers on site to get the learnings and what you see the challenges now. Because again, this will only work and become efficient to make sure you get that double handling or the way to get that backhaul at the same time once we get the customers in a room together with the logistics providers to make it all seamless. But at the moment we're in the design phase. We believe that these situations like 15-minute on and off can work seamlessly, but how that works and in practice will need a combination with you guys, the design of the terminal, and then the end customers, so how they can work.
Wonderful. Well, that's the end of the questions. Thank you, James, and thank you everyone for attending. If you have any questions, please send an email to info@natroad.com.au and we'll pass it on to James. Today's webinar will be uploaded to the Natroad website, so please share it with your colleagues. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.